Hello, everybody. Welcome to Founders Mindset. In this podcast, we'll be speaking to founders of different fields and we'll understand their mindset, their psychology behind taking decisions, coming up with strategies, what did they do for their finances, marketing, their initial challenges, what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and many more. In today's episode, let's talk to Ipsita Panda, who is the founder of House Home. Now, what is House Home? What do they do? And how is this company probably the next big firm that you need to look out for? Let's decode it together today. My name is Vandana and I warmly welcome you to this podcast. Hi, Ipsita.
Hi Vandana. Hi, nice to see you.
Same here. How are you?
All good. Thank you so much. I mean, catching up after IIM is also great.
I know.
Yeah.
So tell me about House Home. How did you come up with this firm and when did you come up with it?
So actually, I was freelancing for quite some time, and then I realized that maybe I need a bigger team to send things up, and so we started with designing and things like that. So 2018, I actually founded the place up, where it was a small office where I hardly had one table, and I had a mat where I could sit and work, and with a table on there, like that. And from there, it took off. Then slowly, I had hired people, and then that is how it went on. So that's about it. 2018 is what we started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does House Home do exactly?
So we are into premium interior sector, where we take care of the entire customized furniture and customized interiors. So you do have a lot of guys who are into this field, but that niche segment which we're talking, where they have a little edge on design and edge on execution and finishing, that is where we come into picture. So you will find, so I would say that in a way it is a boutique interior kind of a place. So that is what you will look out for if you're talking about interiors in a premium sector. So that's what we take care of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll try to understand your journey as an entrepreneur. So what was it like when you went and pitched for your first project?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so so I was working as a collaborator with a couple of guys earlier, and then it was the first time when I had to speak to the MD of another. I mean, we were into a hospitality project that time, and I was kind of nervous, definitely. Like trying to find out and talk properly. Like speaking what we are offering and things like that. But then somehow it just started flowing when you get to the work part. You're of course in awe of the place and the things like that, but then when you start talking about your work, that is when the confidence comes up. And I went absolutely fine, and we cracked it as well. So that is when that time I was collaborating with somebody and working. That time we didn't have our own firm, and as I was working as a consultant there, so then I thought, I mean, I can do this, and I have been the one, pitching on the project, and I could get a bigger project to the table. So I do have some capability, which I can actually exercise in my own way, so that I can even filter out what I want to do, what I don't want to do. So that is how the journey started.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in 2018, when you started, and you were a one woman person,
Yes.
or you had a team with you?
No. So as I said, in 2018, it was just a table. I had a space of myself, where actually it was developed also by my own, myself only, by my team, where it was just a terrace, and we had to develop that space up. So there was nothing there. I had low funds. I invested around 2 lakhs 50,000 odd to get that space up, and I didn't have money for the furniture. So some of it was got done by my carpenter. He said, "Ma'am, you do it. I'll give it to you. Anyways, we'll do business, so it's okay." And there was a carpet where I used to sit, and that is where I used to work. So I was alone. And slowly as work proceeds, you cannot be a one-man army.
Correct.
Like you cannot be everywhere fitting into all the shoes. That is when I thought it's time to branch out and have more people around. And I hired my first architect, who was in fact still there with me. And she came in, and then more, and now I have 5 along with me.
That's
and we also have a social media person who handles, we have an accounts person who handles, so we are 8 in all. So that's how it's been quite a tussling one. Yeah.
So is this the same place that I visited you?
Yes, it's the same place.
So it was just a mat.
It was just a terrace.
Okay.
It was a terrace which came up, and we developed it with the walls. I didn't want the space to be blocked because there was a nice garden, a nice green patch at the back. So I made that such that there will be larger windows, you know, and you see the natural beauty. We don't even have an AC. Only this summer it was really bad. So we installed the AC right now because you couldn't sit and work. But yeah, that's the space where you had come. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, just trying to imagine that there was only a mat in that space. I mean,
Yes.
I know you made the whole thing up and
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
The intricate detailing, the
Yeah.
furniture, everything is fit in that
Thank you so much.
space. So
Yeah.
That's nice. And so, for anybody who is starting their journey in the business of interiors and execution, how important is it to have good vendors? Like for a beginner,
Huh.
how can they understand whether this is a good vendor or this is a vendor that probably I should not make a business deal with? How would you get to know that?
Right. So actually, it is very critical to get the right guy to execute your things, because designing, definitely you will be doing yourself, you'll be having your team to do the designing, but execution, if it is not done properly, then it is totally screwed.
Correct.
And you will actually pay through your nose, because you have to be answerable to the client, right?
True.
And it has to pass through your eyes first.
Correct.
Before the client, right?
Correct.
So it is a little tricky, definitely, but you'll have your ups and downs to even know a vendor. Even I have burnt my hands with couple of projects in the
How was
beginning.
that experience?
It was hard. So we had a guy whom we had told the particular material has to go, and he has got some other material delivered, you know, and the client is at site. And you are wondering, okay, how did this land up here? We had spoken of something else. He had wanted to cut some corners and get that thing up. So you have to go with your gut. You know, to be very frank, in business, you will do a lot of mistakes, you will go up and down, but you have to go with your gut. That if I feel this guy is right, that is when I go ahead with it. If I feel there's a little glitch in their mind that, okay, might be, you know, like sometimes we take decisions because of reasons of, you know, having low projects or things like that, and you'll repent it later. That, okay, maybe it would have been better not doing that project with that guy rather than, you know, like rushing through to finish or get some more you know, projects onto your portfolio. But yeah, that's a little tricky is what I feel. So you have to be very cautious whom you're doing. It's best to go and check their work with the client's intervention, where the client speaks about the vendor. That yes, this guy is, you know, reasonable and he is also dependable. That is when you are assured that, okay, fine, he is good. Or even a reference. If somebody else is your friend, you would have your circle.
Correct.
And somebody else is there who has worked with him. So they would actually say whether it's good or not, you know. And then when you take your call. But yes, a lot of times you have to go with your gut. That's what I would
Because
suggest.
there's so many vendors
There
in
are, yeah.
your space, right? Like
Yes.
right from carpenters
Yeah.
to you need to sometimes, as you do the execution bit
Yeah,
of it,
yeah,
so you
yeah.
need furnitures, you need
Everything.
carpets,
yes.
drapes,
Yes.
paints.
Yeah,
So
so,
how
it's
do you
endless actually.
do that?
So we have a very large set of vendors, so which has got filtered through a period of time. You know, so as I said, I started in 2018, but before that also I was consulting. So it is not like when I started in 2018, I was starting fresh. So I already had a set of vendors whom I knew I can, you know, like rely on with their accountability of time and also the quality. So for us, like smallest of things, like if I have to just break a wall, you know, just breaking a wall, it has to be broken, the debris has to be cleared, some guy has to do the fresh thing, you know, like then again do up the civil work in terms of plastering, and then again putty, and like painters have to come in,
Correct.
paneling has to go. So many vendors are related, and it is always like one guy finishes, the other guy comes.
Correct.
So if one guy has not done his job right, there's a blame game as well.
Oh, so how do you balance that?
So that's what I said. So you have to have a synergy in the vendors as well.
Okay.
So the guys who are working with me have been here for 10, 12 years now with me. So they have a synergy among themselves.
Oh.
And they're like-minded as well. So it does take time to, you know, build that up. But once you are set and you know that they are, and especially in the hard times, the testing times, you actually know whether these guys are there for you or not. So all businesses will have that.
Correct.
So in the testing time, if you know this guy is there with you at the back, knowing the fact that yes, you are somebody reliable, that is when you know, yes, this guy is going to go ahead with us for future.
And
Yeah.
what about the credit, like for example, walk me through your, how the entire process happens, right from procuring a client to the final execution.
Got it.
How
Okay.
does
The entire journey.
process happen?
Okay, so it's actually very subjective. Like sometimes it so happens that we get references from the previous clients. Some very rarely we are organically growing company. So I don't have a big marketing team who is doing like a lot of marketing gimmicks to get projects, because we are also in a niche segment. In a
Correct.
premium sector. So I don't have those guys. So largely it is through references. So we get a client through reference. That is actually a first edge.
That's
When
good,
the
yeah.
client knows the fact that like these guys have done somebody's job and they have seen their home, so that is the first stage we get. From there they brief us on what they want, and we get their layout and things. So first we give a rough estimate, a budgetary, just to give them an idea that this is the kind of money that we want to be spending in this, depending on what brief they give us, and that is very tentative. So from there, if they're okay, that okay fine, this fits into our bill, or they might even say that okay fine, we might not do so much, we might reduce it to this much, this is the amount of budget we have. That is when we like tweak on the material little bit, suit it to their thing, and like give it to the best. And from there, when the confirmation amount comes in, the handling charges we call it, that is when we start our design process. So there we show them the 3Ds. That is almost like a 3 weeks kind of a time frame, where we from the design briefing to the level of the 3D comes into picture. And once the design is frozen, that is when we again give a apple to apple comparison of their estimate. That this is what you're getting, this is what you're paying. So there is no ambiguity of what
Correct.
you are paying and what you are getting, right? And once that thing comes in, that is when the main work starts.
Okay.
Because till then it was purely designing. After
Correct.
this, the execution starts. So sourcing comes into picture, where we are getting it done. So vendors is not my problem. Vendors is like, I'm glad that we have a great set of vendors. It's largely the time frame that we have to adhere to. That some clients want to move in at the particular time. So we have never defaulted. At the max, 1 month up and down is what we have done. Mainly for the fact, okay, the funds have not come, or the client is in some other place, we are waiting for some approvals, and some dependency on the imports, then we cannot help.
Correct.
So there it is, we have been up and down for a month max. Otherwise we have been bang on time with our deliverables as well. So that way, yes. And then execution happens at site, and we do a deep cleaning as well.
Oh.
Yeah, and then we hand it over to the clients. So that's how it works. Yeah. Yeah.
Because yours is completely like fund driven, right? You
Yes.
need to ensure that you have enough funds with you
That's
in order
right.
to execute it. Because
That's right.
a couple of things are expensive, like you need to give advances to your vendors, and if you're
Yes.
exporting things,
Yes.
then you need to pay probably the full amount.
Yes,
So how
yes.
do you generally balance all these things? Like, do clients give you an advance or anything?
Yes. So basically, what happens is we ask for a 40 or 50%, depending on the kind of project, to give us that money to kickstart the work on the execution front. We have these slabs that we have made, that when the false ceiling work is over, when the civil work is over, this is the slab you have to pay us. Because unless I get that fund, I cannot channelize. So
Correct.
actually, our money comes in completely in the end.
That's true.
Before that, we have to basically distribute
Exactly.
to all the vendors,
Yeah.
to all the guys, because unless these days you don't have credits.
don't?
No, very rarely you will have a guy who would have
Oh,
credit. So you
okay.
will have to pay upfront to get the material to the site, because it all works on GST, right?
Correct.
So you have to give the bill. There has to be a e-bill, so the material has to reach the site, and so that's how it works. So only because I have a couple of vendors who have been working with me for some time, they do entertain sometimes, depending on the scale of work, where they are okay that we can give you and we are waiting for some time for the payment. Otherwise, mostly it is payments first and then. So our benefit of the profit comes only towards the end, when all the work is done, and the last 10% or the last whichever is there, that is where you actually expecting your money to come. That's how it works. But yeah, time frame is one thing. You have to be very careful, because these import items, they almost take 3 months.
Exactly, yeah.
So you have to be planning much in advance, where the client has to give a confirmation that these are the things we are buying, and confirming also with the vendor. We have had issues as well. Top-notch guys also have had issues with deliverables from their end. We are getting things in installments. one thing coming, one thing not coming. You know, so I mean, the bathroom is not functional because the things have not arrived.
Oh, no.
So things like that. But yes, I mean, in all of that, we have been able to finish, following up many times, you know, with them.
But how do
So,
you
yeah.
handle it? Because there are, like, say, if you have 5 to 6 projects
Yeah,
running
yeah.
parallelly,
Yeah.
and there are so many intricate details that you
That's
need to
right.
remember, like, say,
That's right.
as you said, following up,
Yeah.
getting the approval, releasing of funds, talking to these different vendors,
Yes,
because
yes.
vendors also have other projects.
Yes.
So how do you, make the system of, remembering everything and following it?
So what happens is, I'm not the only person doing it. I have my architects who are working under me doing a lot of it as well, because I cannot be everywhere. Though for some reason, I don't know why my memory is very good that I can remember all projects, all nitty-gritties. In fact, sometimes clients ask me as well that how do you remember this part? I don't know, like it's just natural. But yes, my architects are very, proactive when it comes to following up with the vendors. Everybody has their own projects. We do have a meeting, every week, depending on the deliverables for the week. So we have a schedule. It doesn't come, so you have to be very well planned that way, that these are the things planned for this week, and for that these are the dependency items. So that is how we take care
So
of.
do you have a format or something?
Yes, we do have
So
a
that
format.
is something that every architect follows
Yes.
for every project.
Yes, so we have deliverables per week, and that we monitor. So something has gone to the next week, we know it's already late. So that is how you have to be little cautious about that. But you have to be on your toes with that schedule all the time. But sometimes, like, since a builder is taking longer to deliver it to us, then we don't have a control. So, I mean, those things we have to make clear with the client as well, that after we get the keys, that is when our timeline starts,
Correct.
not before that. So that's what, yeah.
So you work with homes, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
everybody's preferences, taste is very different. So how do you generally understand that from a client?
Actually,
Is there any method that you guys follow?
no, as I said, like it's natural. Moreover, they're going to be living in the home.
Correct.
So it's not like a showroom I design and people walk through and go out. They have to live in the house.
Correct.
So for us, functionality comes first. So when we're taking the brief from the client, that is when we are asking them for the exact things that they want. Like for a small thing like a closet, how, do you like to hang? Do you like to shelf? Do you like to put it in a drawer? Do you like to put it in a shelf, like stacking? So those are the ways you ask them questions, where they specifically tell you and you understand. Then we don't deal it as a bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3. No, we say whose room is it?
Acha.
Which is the person going to be using it? What is the age of the person who is using it?
Okay.
So in that case, you specify it to that particular client rather than just a bed, just a study. So if it is a child of a particular age, you have a ergonomics to follow. With the child has to go up, and
Correct.
and sit down and not have a back pain with the little kids,
Yeah.
And sometimes even like elder people, we give them a higher bed. So they don't have the knee issue. So we had we have done 3-4 rooms together, but one would have a 6-inch mattress, one would have an 8-inch mattress, one would have a 10-inch mattress, purely because of the kind of usage of the client is.
So even you get in the mattresses, everything.
Everything, yes,
So end to end.
end to end. I mean, even props like what you see here.
Okay.
We also do props as well.
Okay.
So we do customized art. So I mean, a lot of our projects we have customized art which the client has wanted us to do, and we have done and we have delivered as well.
So you will have like so many different
Yes.
connects, right? Like you
Yes.
need to have artist
Yeah.
connect, and then bed vendors and
Yeah.
all of those things.
Yes. So it's like different verticals, I would say. We have very exclusive guys, and I mean, I'm actually a very social person as such. And when I meet people, I connect with them. Like now, I'm meeting people who are shooting us, so I know, like they are also a bunch of guys whom I can work with in future.
Correct.
So it's basically trying to be proactive on whom you're meeting and whom you're, interacting and knowing their skills.
Okay.
That is when you can build up. So now actually we are in fact recently going to be doing a project where the by the client. Actually, it's a mid place where they want some exclusive furniture from us.
Okay.
So which is like completely customized. So
Wow.
I have vendors for that, so
Okay.
loose furniture, solid wood furniture. So let's see how that comes out.
That's great.
Yeah.
All the very best. Hope
Thank
it
you. Thank
comes out well.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's amazing that you need to keep in touch with so many different people, remember what they do,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
execute it towards the end. So for a beginner who's entering into this space, what are the tips that you would suggest for getting a corporate client?
Okay, for a beginner, I would say take it steady. Don't, the grass is always greener on the other side. So take it easy, take your steps slow. I mean, it's always organic to grow rather than grow rapidly. I mean, today's scenario, I know with the digital platforms, you grow drastically, but you might have a drastic fall as well. So I would say grow gradually. If you have to deal with a corporate actually is a lot different from homes. Homes is very specific to particular client, to the kind they work with it. But in a corporate, you are dealing with a larger crowd. You're dealing with a different scenario of circulation. Where will they sit? What is the kind of space that you have on each other? Like how much space you have. So the layout matters a lot. How you're maneuvering the circulation of the space. And so that's what I feel. And if they're pitching, then I would say take it slow, where you're starting with a smaller space first, get your foot on it, and then take the next step where you're dealing with a larger project. So, and even if you're getting a larger project, it's great. So hire somebody who has expertise in that. Then only I would say that you can, fit into that space. Otherwise, it is a little tough, and you'll end up, with a situation which you don't want to be in. So that would be my recommendation.
That's a very practical advice.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
eat how much ever you can.
Yes.
Don't bite for too large things. That's a very nice thing.
Yeah.
And if you were talking about marketing, right?
Yeah,
But if you look at it in interiors, not many people do marketing. I think only Live Space, you have worked there as well previously as a consultant.
Yeah.
They do a lot of marketing. So how do you generally, like you said, referrals is one way.
Yes.
But say you want to, scale up, right? So how will people know about your firm and your work?
Yeah, so that's actually very interesting because to be very frank, marketing why we don't do is also because we don't want to get into the segment where you just have a kitchen and wardrobe being done.
Oh, okay.
So that's the reason we don't want to do that. So referral definitely is one, but we are trying to collaborate with couple of guys where we can be the back end, where I would say how would you say, complementing business is what we are targeting right now. See, somebody who buys a house from someone does need an interior. So if I speak to the guy who is selling the house, so we are speaking to a few guys right now as a collaboration where they give us the lead from the time when it is being sold. So few builders we are speaking to, and also few manufacturers. Like I'm also speaking to a few manufacturers where, they are manufacturing, but they don't have the design edge. Where we become the design edge and you do the manufacturing. So it is both ways. So you have to look at somebody whom you can exist together, and it is a complementing business.
Correct.
Like to and fro. What is before you, what is after you. So that is when you can actually scale up. That is what we're trying to do right now. Few things are in the process of discussions and things. I hope it turns out. So let's see. Yeah, but that's what I would say is the way we are looking at it.
We don't see anybody doing marketing in interiors, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we do have these stores and everything, but not architects or interior designers who market it.
Yes. So basically, people who have an experience center, like when you say Live Space or a Bonito or other, like many brands are there actually. So they have an experience center where the client is coming and seeing, and they know this is what I'm buying. But for us, we cannot do that as well because first of all, it is a big investment. Secondly, what you are showing, you might be able to be capable of doing a lot more than that.
Correct.
Which you cannot showcase everything around.
Correct.
So all those connotations. So that's what I would suggest, that if somebody is wanting to scale out, I mean, it's better to see your complementing business in whichever field actually. Like interior is one, you give other guys as well who would be wanting to do things. So they can definitely look at the complementing business and then try and branch that out. That's what would be my advice.
So when you took up your first project individually, what were the challenges that you faced?
Well, yes. So I felt I was doing everybody's job,
Acha.
where I was checking with the carpenter, like going back and forth with the client, and then site visits are very often. So I never really knew how much I made out of the project because of the amount of running around that is there. So you are in everybody's shoes, right? But you do not know what is the actual role. So you become the bottleneck. Actually, you become the bottleneck,
Okay.
where the client would be wanting all answers from you. So I felt that was a tough time. But of course, you have to delegate.
Correct.
Unless you delegate, you cannot move ahead.
Correct.
So delegation is the first way, and you have to trust them. Whom you are delegating, you have to trust that guy is going to do the job. Briefing is first. You have to brief that guy and then delegate. So then they will take care from there. You don't have to carry on, like pestering them. This is how you have to do. This is how you do. So some part you have to let them also explore, and of course make sure that it is done.
Correct.
So you have to check on it once, but not be after them snagging. Okay, fine. What's happening? Not. That's what I feel is the thing. First project, yes, it was like very hard.
And in your work, there's a lot of site visits, correct?
Yeah.
And I know that you have kids.
Yeah.
How is it like? I mean, to
manage
balance your personal life, your professional life, travel in Bangalore where there's so much of jam everywhere. So how do you generally balance this particular challenge out?
Yeah, so I do have 2 kids, and they have grown with me along with my ups and downs as well. In fact, the first sites I used to take my child along with me. So she's seen that muck also, and she'll be wondering, Mama, what are you doing? And why are you doing? So there were times like that also. But yes, so what happens, you have to have a help. You cannot be everywhere. So as I said, delegation comes first. So I have somebody to take care when I'm not around. And site visits, I try and keep it in the morning half. Where you don't have to go through the traffic. If you say the site visit is at 12, you're actually hitting the traffic at 10. So might as well say that I'll be by 10. So you start at 8.
Correct.
All kids go to school, right? So when kids are off to school, that is the time you kickstart your work.
True.
So, so that is when when you're back, I make it a point that I'm back home early.
Okay.
So I have my last meetings mostly lined up around 4 or 4:30. So I know I'm finishing it off by 5:30 or 6 at the max, and I'm home for the kids in the evening, right? Where I have to see what they're studying as well.
That's true.
Right, so that part has to be taken care by a mom and a dad. And I'm a very supportive husband, where sometimes, like, if I have to go somewhere really far and I have to start very early, I make it a point that he is at home, working from home that day, so that kids are not alone. So those things, you have to have your synergy. So that is how I work it out.
That's nice.
Yeah.
A fun question.
Yeah.
So say for example, we need to, construct a house in Bangalore, which is simple but has really modern interiors. How much would it cost?
So actually, if you have to construct, these days the kind of costing that is going, approximate costing would come to around 2,400 per square feet for construction. That I'm telling bare minimum.
Bare minimum. Okay.
Then if you're talking about going into interiors, interiors is another additional price, because that will be depending on your taste.
Correct.
So minimal can go up to, like this I'm telling in terms of a overall, like a, I would say, little higher level. Okay. So 1,500 odd you can consider as a costing. It can even go up to 3,000, 4,000, 6,000, depending on the amount of stuff you want to put it in the house, because there's no end. You can put a marble, you can do a paneling which looks like marble.
Correct.
But marble would be a very expensive thing, but the paneling will be little, you can,
Cheaper alternative.
Yeah, cheaper alternative, and also it will be, I would say, not exactly as finish of marble, but yeah, you get the look of it. So anything like that would be okay. So construction cost 2,400 is minimum. It can go higher depending on the finishes you're talking, and then from there interior is another additional level which starts from 1,500 approximately. It can go up to 6,000, 7,000 depending on what you're making. So that is how it is, a big range actually. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
And how big is the interiors market according to you?
It is quite big actually.
And how much have you captured?
Maybe very minimal. So I would say in every property you see in Bangalore, we would have done 1 or 2 or 3 homes there.
Oh wow.
So those are the premium ones that is there that you're looking at, and so that's what it is. So as I said, I don't want to capture huge market. I want to capture the value market. So that's what we are managing. And interior market is big because people are getting a taste of living in a decent home. I think Corona did a big thing there, when people started living in the house lot more than, be in the traffic or go to the office. So maybe that is the time they realized, okay, I have to do up my home. And I have to show up and they have to do a video call, the background has to be nice. So we had that briefing number of times from a client that I want my backdrop to be nice in my study room. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Corona did a good thing for us where the value of the house increased.
Okay.
And so definitely it's going to grow. And when you say that the big players are investing so much to get into the market, and the builders are having their own interior wings,
Correct.
then 100% it's going to grow. And there is, I would say that it does have a big future where minimal interiors is also the thing and also maximalism.
Yeah.
So people have a taste and you'll definitely be going. And now women also, I feel, women empowerment has become a big thing. Earlier, when we used to deal with clients, then it's largely the man who would decide how much you have to shell out.
Correct.
But nowadays, I do see ladies coming into picture and we interact more with them.
Oh wow.
Who would say, this is the amount I am willing to spend. And they would actually be the ones transferring to our accounts. So that is a big thing. And women are making the house. So, but obvious,
I know that's
it goes
nice.
together. So I feel there's a big growth coming up.
That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And I went through your profile and you have done from 1,000 square feet to 13,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So what is the general difference that you can see in a 1,000 square feet house to a 15,000 square feet house?
So
In terms of your work
yeah.
and at the same time the way you prepare yourself for the pitch and everything.
I feel client comes first in every way because when you're doing a 1,000 square feet house, the client has a different requirement. When he would want to double up that space to something else, and at the same time it has to look presentable. It
Correct.
shouldn't be clumsy. You shouldn't be overdoing things in the house, and it should look smaller because it's already like a compact size. So that is definitely, so as I said, the client comes first. It's their requirements. So we might look for a convertible bed, we might look for a table which goes against the wall for the dining, might look for like a bench instead of all 4 chairs. The space looks bigger.
I know.
And like things like that. And lighting plays a major role when it comes to smaller homes because brighter light makes the space look larger. The color you use, that also makes it much different. And darker colors have to be used in a minimal way. Some pop-ups here and there makes a space look peppy and things like that. And doubling up space is what you largely do, in the smaller homes. In larger homes, it's a different challenge altogether because you have so many spaces, you don't know what to do with. You'll have so many you have a family space, you have another living, you have 2 kitchens, you have 5 bedrooms.
Correct.
So there it's like you have to ask the client how he is planning to use all those rooms as. So as I said, client comes first. So when they say, okay fine, I don't want to use this bedroom as a bedroom, I maybe want to use it as my office. So that is when your brief changes completely for that room. Your electricals will change. It might not be, the regulators might not come next to the bed.
Correct.
Because the builder will give it right there. But the client brief is changing. Then one room you might use it as a media room where you'll have a couch and then you have a acoustic going on the walls. Like that. So purely the usability of the house makes a difference. And of course the range that they are wanting to play with. So 1,000 square feet has its own beauty and 13,000 also has its own beauty, where you have playing around with things and colors and splashes, and sometimes you go muted, sometimes you go loud. So that's the fun of it, I feel.
Which do you like to work with?
So I prefer, it's basically the brief that we are excited about. We are not excited about the size. I mean, we are purely excited about the brief.
Which is your most favorite brief so far?
We did actually a very small home but it came out really nice. Where I think we completed that execution in 21 days because they had a Ugadi story happening and they wanted to do the Griha Pravesh. And it was a very small home. I think it was some 1200 odd. The carpet size, I'm not even remembering what it was. But yeah, we did do the space up such that it was a very compact house. The dining also very tiny, where you had the chairs going inside there, and we took all the panelings up to the ceiling, so the space was looking larger. In fact, we got quite a lot of inquiries from there. Where they actually asked. The budgets were not very large, but yeah, it was an interesting project to work with. So that was like, we had a big rush also, and planning had to be perfect, things arriving at the right place, handing over after deep cleaning. But yeah, they were very happy. So that's what counts.
That's nice. And this deep cleaning, is it something that is your USP or
everybody does it?
They do.
Everybody does it, yeah. So because unless it's clean, you can't move to the house.
Correct.
Yeah.
And after you do the interiors, so you have your team coming in, taking a lot of pictures. And
we do. We actually, wherever we do a full home, that is where we actually feature it. When we are doing many homes, but not all of them are full homes. Sometimes we are only doing, like the living kitchen, like with the larger space. We even do a lot of renovations. We do a lot of renovations. But there somehow, I mean, we've been bad on the before after pictures, but we should, get into that. So some of that, they would have their old furniture which they want to reuse in the house. So we are open to those. We will not say you discard it off. We also do, refurbishing of that to some extent. So it blends with the new look. That also we take care, So yeah, I would say that's the thing. Yeah.
So, for example, say somebody comes to you and they say that they want modern, but at the same time the rustic look. Is it challenging, that particular thing?
So I'll tell you, it's like Pinterest has become one major Bible now, So where everybody looks at a thing and I want this in my house. I'll be like, okay, fine, but it has to blend in the rest of the language.
Correct.
So then what happens, we give a preference कि किसके रूम में क्या आना है. Like if the child is of a particular age, she wants to have lighting on the ceiling which has moons and stars, So that room is a different theme. So we actually bifurcate with the door. So if the door is there, I can actually have a different theme inside.
Oh,
so, so per room we can do themes. So we had done a very interesting house in Prestige Falcon City where there were two daughters. Both of them very different in the way they were. One was into carving. And the other one is like, I want a circular bed.
Oh.
So, and the room I was wondering whether it'll fit or not, So we actually made a mark on the bed, on the floor, and we asked her to sleep, So she actually slept and she's like, yeah, I can fit into that. So, yeah, so that's how it goes. So themes, we zoom it as per the space. Living area, I can't have 2-3 themes running. Living has to be blending, right? So from living to foyer to dining, generally that is a common spaces. Sometimes you have a kitchen also going, where it is an open kitchen. So you have to have some element of that internally in the kitchen as well. But if it is a space which is bifurcated by a door, that room can actually have a different look. So because people are also not clear.
Correct.
So only when you start doing the 3Ds, they realize, okay, this might not look nice, this might look nice. So that's what.
Which do you like renovations or fresh new house?
Yeah, it's actually tricky. Renovations, I would say, is a little hard. Yeah. It's a little hard because some things are already coming in the existing stage, where you have to break up and it's quite messy. The client also wondering whether you should throw up all those things or to reuse that because we rip apart the wardrobes, we'll rip apart the kitchen. They'll say, okay, fine, isko use kar sakte hain kya? So whether you can use this or not, then so we'll be wondering, it's all rusted, whether it'll be okay, we'll deliver, but whether they can use it. Correct. So a fresh slate is always best to work on. That is, I think, for everybody. But I never say no to work because I feel work is definitely God.
I know.
So whichever way, if it comes, renovations or fresh home, we are open. But we prefer to do new homes rather than renovations.
Correct. Yeah. So why I asked you this is because in Bangalore there are a lot of these old homes,
Yes.
and if you see, they all are made in a certain way.
Yes.
Like there'll be multiple doorways,
Yeah.
or there'll be this red flooring on
Yeah,
the ground.
yeah.
So you might get clients like that as well, right? So
Yes,
how
yes.
do you maintain that old look of the house and at the same time get the modern
So,
themes of it? Because this red flooring and all is like pretty old nowadays.
is.
You don't even get such
yes,
kind of flooring.
Yes. So,
And
something
it's dark color also. So
It's
how
very
do
dark.
you make it look big, or how do you blend it?
So what happens is, if it is an old home, some of it you would want to retain, some of it, but not the whole thing maybe.
Acha.
So you have options of laying floor on it. So sometimes we tile it out as well, or if you want to do a wooden flooring. So mainly it's a skirting which comes into the picture, which we have to remove, and then fresh skirting has to be done based on what you're doing. So you can have tile being laid on top of the red tile of the red flooring, red oxide flooring as well. That's also possible, and then you have these skirtings being done with the tile. Even wooden flooring you can do. So people who have that red flooring right now, maybe they would want to upgrade to a modern home. Or who already having that, they have that blend, they would want to have a Moroccan tile maybe, which has, so we have done Moroccan tile flooring as well. Some of them are loud, some of them are subtle, depending on the client's liking. So we'll give them options, like 3-4 options, how do you like it? And of course some blend of the house has to be there. There was an interesting inquiry that we had got, which was actually a house in Jayanagar only. So old home, it was like from their parents, as they inherited the home, where he wanted to renovate the space up, and he had a particular bed which was there from his parents, and we actually retained that as such.
Oh wow, nice.
Like some things have a emotional value,
Exactly,
more than like the look of it. So we might blend the rest of the space as per that. So that you can have a rattan shutter happening there. So it goes with the modern, and at the same time you have the same post bed. The post beds are in these days as well.
Yes.
So you can have a post bed and you can have a rattan shutter, which goes in the modern and the thing. So you have to balance it out. So client, I feel, comes first in every statement.
Correct.
What they want, what is their preference, So that's what,
Because in your job, every day is a new day, and every client has their own requirement.
Yeah.
And, it's always about creativity. Right?
Yeah.
So, do you think sometimes being a perfectionist can curb creativeness, or how does it go? Like being perfectionist, is it helpful in interiors?
It does, but trust me, you will always have something that you can't fix. Always. And that is a Murphy's law, I believe.
Correct.
So sometimes you have to let go. Like you tried your best, you could not do it. You have to admit that it cannot be any better, and that you have to confront with the client. You have to tell them openly, transparently that, sir, we cannot do beyond this. And this is the best I could have done. And they also understand. So I feel even the clients understand that, okay, fine, yes, they give it a try. We give it a one try, second try. In one of the projects, we had a shelving where the shelf paints will come in a silver finish. The client wanted them to be painted black because it is to match with the rest of the things. We have even painted like a shelf paint to a black color because it is to match. Though we know that tomorrow when he has to open the screw up, the paint might come into the way.
Correct.
But because he wanted it, we have done it, So that's the thing.
In your industry,
Yeah.
if you could change something, what is it that you would want to change?
Well, I would try to change one thing, is that don't avidly follow an internet, to understand what's going to happen. So when you have given the job to a professional, you have to trust them. You just can't avidly get something from the internet and say this is possible. But when you say what is possible, something goes behind that. Like a hardware which might be very expensive. It looks all very simple in those reels where you're by folding all the doors happily, But those one hardware might be a bomb to really, spend money on. So don't blindly follow the internet. You do a little homework, because the people who are working for you are working for your home.
Correct.
And they know their business well. They know it, like these days everybody is a doctor, as they say. When you meet the doctor also, sometimes even they say you can read out in the internet what all is good for you, what all is not good for you, because they are also pissed off.
Correct.
Because you go into a professional, they are experts in their industry. You can ask them, you know, like, okay, fine, this is what I'm thinking, is it okay or not? You cannot say it's possible, I've seen it in the internet, I've seen it in the videos. Do a little homework as well, you know. So trust is what I feel is something I should want to. So don't blindly trust the internet. There is lots,
Correct.
but you have to see, filter out, and then see, and then, you know, like, openly ask what is possible, what is not possible. Yeah,
That's
what.
good. I mean, communication and trusting the professional is very important.
Yes, yes.
Because in real, so many things can be, you know,
And
done.
they look seamless.
Yeah,
Trust me, it
that's
looks
true.
seamless.
Like just a click like this,
Yeah,
and the
like-
house is done.
Suppose click like this, the house is done. A painting which would have taken a couple of hours is done in like 2 minutes reel.
Correct.
So the effort that goes inside that, you know, that you have to respect. You have to respect the person who is working for your home. They're working for your home, for your best way of using the house.
Correct.
So you have to trust them rather than blindly just going on the internet and picking up things and this is what it is and they're doing a better job or somebody else has done this. So that's what I would say.
Correct.
Yeah.
And now, since we were talking about the entire tech aspect of it, so you have AI coming in, and
Yeah.
you know, you have so many different
Yes.
tools that are
Yeah,
available.
yeah, yeah.
So how are you going to, you know, adapt yourself to this changes that is happening?
So actually we are already talking to one of these guys who would have a project management tool where we will be monitoring the project based on that tool, where it will be updated. Everything that happens, as I said, it's in the initial talk, that it's all interlinked.
Correct.
When one job gets over, it is pushed to the next guy. But monitoring that every time is a task. And when we are running so many projects, sometimes definitely as a human you will miss out.
Correct.
So you would need a tool to help you out with that. So we are talking to somebody where we are taking a tool which will have all those updated, where the team members will update it from their end, taking confirmation from the execution front. So every project will be updated on that. You know, where we'll know where it is coming and where how is the timelines being followed. Apart from that, for 3D softwares, we're already using the 3D, you know, all the softwares available, and the renders also are being done on the. But that is what I would say is the thing that we are concentrating on right now in terms of monitoring the progress of a project. So that is what will be easier for us to manage.
And is AI a threat to you guys?
Not really, because you cannot. Not really, I would say, because every home, as I said, I have done in the same project 8 homes.
Oh wow.
You know, 8 homes, like villas, that too, and all of them have been designed differently.
Wow.
So, I mean, but obvious that AI might give you one solution. Like when you do a chat GPT, it will give you one lot of answers, but it cannot, I'm not sure, I've not used it though, but you cannot have 10 mindsets or 20 mindsets. In a house itself, you have 4 guys. Right? The child wants one thing, the mother wants one thing, the grandmother wants one thing, the husband wants one thing. How is AI going to match all that up? If it is a one input, I know there is one output. But when the input is only varied, so definitely AI should be used to help.
Correct.
Because to help us make our work easy, to visualize the space better. There's another software, I mean, where we would want to see the whole space up. You know, that is what also we're trying to talk to this thing. So, but I'm not seeing it as a threat so far, unless something, you know, like magical comes up.
So that time you'll adapt to whatever changes.
Yeah.
So clients are very tough, right? I mean, in service industry. So which was that one project which you felt was the toughest?
It was actually renovation.
Renovation. Okay.
It was a tough one because the client was very demanding, and perhaps that was the only project where we have spent that much of energy, and we didn't even check on how much we made. You know, because at one point when you're into the soup, you have to just gulp it.
Correct.
So that was a hard one where I mean, we had one brief, and he also went ahead with some other vendor, you know, in the middle, where he said, okay, I'm going to get this done on my own with some other guy. Tough one actually. And they also had some issues with their family front, so I'll not blame it fully. Maybe it was a mental thing. But yeah, that project, one of the projects was a renovation project. He was living in the same society where he would go up and down every evening to check what's
Oh.
happening.
Okay.
And when it is a civil work, it is quite messy.
Correct.
You know, like it's like going back to a site when it's under construction.
Mm.
Because you have seen that house being finished, it cannot be prim proper every day you visit. So he would create a ruckus that you guys have not done the job properly. You would not know the sequence, how things have to move, and not every day the guy has to stand there to say hello to you.
Correct.
You know, we know the process. Like something has to happen, it has to stay for like that for a while, and then the next step has to happen. Like in a bathroom, like when we're doing up the renovation, the water, when you do a waterproofing, that water has to stay, you know, in that for at least a couple of days for the waterproofing to get done properly. So you, and we need not explain all these steps to a client. So it was a little hard, and every time he would carry on asking, you know, like whether you're using a good material or not a good material. See, when you've come to us for a trust, you've come to us.
Correct.
We have shown you a house which was done where people were living.
Oh wow.
Where, you know, like, so that was a little hard project. We finished it though, but we could not feature up the space up because he was so, you know, put off that we didn't even want to entertain anything beyond. So that was perhaps only one project where I closed the group right then after the project got over.
Oh.
So that was a little hard, but yeah, part and parcel of learning, so
I
it's
know.
okay. Yeah, so that's what.
And what's your vision for House Home?
So I actually see it as a boutique interiors going up. I don't see it in a like a larger scale where we are having a huge experience center and people walking in. Walk-in customers I'm not seeing till now. I don't know if my vision is small, but that's how I see it. So I want it to be a boutique place exclusively for people who are wanting to have a customized home fully, you know, who have a taste of design and who also have a taste for good execution. You know, like I would not want a sharp edge going anywhere in the cabinet, you know. So it's, and so that's what I would say, that I see it growing like a place maybe internationally as well ultimately, where design is our edge and execution exactly as per the design is also our edge. So when a 3D and 2D comes, you know, 3D and the actual comes into picture, it looks like it was never different. So that's what I see myself as.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just India, it's the global vision
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
have.
yeah.
So,
So-
all the very best.
So
for
I
that.
hope so. So we are actually targeting a couple of international awards this year. So I'm hoping we, you know, like crack one or two there. So at least some name up there.
Correct.
So
That's
that's
nice.
what, yeah.
And do you guys have these competitions as well? Because I heard that, you know, if you have to do up a particular space, like a commercial setup, there is a competition.
It is.
And
Yeah.
you submit your pitches.
Yeah.
And after the best one wins. So have you participated ever in something like this?
You're talking about the awards?
Not the awards, but
Internal
you know,
pitch.
generally, like if they
Yeah,
have
so all clients would have 3 other quotations with them.
so everything is a competition.
So whenever you're going to a client, it's not specific that they have just come to you. They would
Correct.
definitely do their homework with other guys, which I think is also fair, because when we also buy something, I would also see 2 other things to compare whether it is okay or not. It's a big investment you're doing.
Correct.
So it is just on their part to also do that. But as I said, that when you are wanting to buy that premium, you have to pay a premium as well.
Correct.
That is when the deciding factor comes into picture, whether you want the run of the mill or whether you want that little extra edge which you are actually paying for with the kind of workmanship that we are giving you.
So what's your USP?
So I would say, purely as I said, from design to execution, you will not have any trouble. It will be seamless, number one. Secondly, what you see is what you get. So it's not, there's nothing ambiguous. I'll show you something and I'll give you something that doesn't work. So most of the time, as I said, once the 3D is finalized, what you get is almost 90%. So that is what I would say. We try and detail it out such that the 3D actually looks exactly like the final one. So detailing is, I would say, our USP, where we take care of every bit. And all things like, since we are a boutique guys, like anything under the roof for finishing, we can do. Whether it is PU, whether it is rattan, whether it is, you know, profile shutters, whether it is fluted shutters, whether it is veneer, whether it's, you know, all finishes. And anything, even if imported items have to be bought, I do have guys who can give you those hardwares, you know, like where you can have the imported look in the house as well. So sourcing is one, and second is the finishing. So these two I would say is our
It's
edge.
very, very important,
Yeah,
right? Both
yeah.
sourcing and
Yeah.
finishing.
Yeah.
And so since we were speaking about this USP aspect of it, so back in 2018, when you did the first project and when you got your client, so what did you feel that the client felt in you that, okay, I need to trust this person who's starting off completely new and I'll give her the project? Any guesses?
So
to that?
2018, the first project that I did was the room.
Asha, yours.
It was just a room. No, it was a client's room.
Asha,
The room size was around 27 by 14.
Okay.
I still remember that space. And the client actually had got a reference from someone, and they knew that she's good at design. So there, at that time, I was not executing. I was purely designing. So because I didn't have the like the thing to kickstart on fully on the execution front, so we were only designing that time, and I was a consultant then. So their vendor was doing the work, and I was giving the drawings. So I mean, one advantage was there that those guys were good, because they also had the rest of the house done with them. So he did a good job, and I was only coordinating with respect to design and finishes and going back and forth with the client. So I think it was a good opportunity. The biggest break that I got was in 2019. When one of the client actually trusted us to do his house, which was a huge house, and there also I was a designer only, not into execution. And he said, okay, fine, because I took a pitch along with my design presentation, which he felt that because I took that extra time before he even paid me a penny to do up the space, to propose what I want to do in that space. So he felt that I have gone one extra mile for him than just coming and talking about prices. So that was the biggest pitch I would say I stood for. And when I came out from that meeting, and he said, I'm gonna go ahead with you, and he even agreed on my terms of commercials, I was in the ninth cloud, I called my dad, I called my husband, that yeah, I did crack the deal. It was fabulous.
amazing.
Yeah. So
you
that
went
was-
an extra mile.
Yeah.
That was your
Yes.
USP, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that you do for every client of yours
Yeah.
to ensure that that perfect finish from
Yeah.
3D to reality happens.
Yeah. And sometimes you actually forego a little bit of your margins. You have to do little more than what you thought you would be earning, because the guy whom you're dealing with, is a potential marketing person for you as well.
Correct.
Which is, I mean, we don't have a marketing cost as such, but I mean, he'll be living in that house, and he knows that these guys are genuine, so he is actually the guy who's going to be spreading your word. So I feel word of mouth, as you say.
Correct.
So doing the best for the person who is with you right now is always the best trick.
That's amazing. That's a very good advice, I think, I would say.
Yeah.
So all this while we spoke about the entrepreneurial and architect Ipsita, so let's talk about you. So how was your childhood like? Like, where did you grow up, and how was that entire experience?
Well, I am from a very small place. I was born in Sambalpur. We have lived in Orissa most of our life. Only when I was in class 8th, we went to Delhi. My dad is a civil engineer. So I have grown up seeing plans in front of him.
Oh, wow.
Maybe perhaps that was the place where it triggered. I don't know really. But I used to sit with him on the plans, and used to see how he's very passionate about his work. So he's a civil engineer. So I used to sit along with him and check how things are working, like how things can fall in place. So that is what, and I was not really great with studies. I used to be an average child. Both my brothers were really fabulous. I have 2 brothers, and they are very good at studies. So always like, I don't know what she's gonna do. I don't know what she's gonna do. So it used to be like that always. But it was great growing up with 2 brothers. Where you are a little more, sturdy.
Are you the younger one, or?
I'm the youngest one.
Oh,
So
amazing. Yeah.
So it is actually nice to grow up with 2 elder brothers,
Yeah.
where you're protected. At the same time, you're not that like that lovey-dovey kind of a small girl. You're always like more on upfront and stronger. I used to play cricket with them. Always a fielding one though.
Yeah. They never used to give you the bat?
Yeah, never.
A ball?
Yeah, so I largely be the fielder. But yeah, so it was nice. And then when we came to Delhi, actually my dad is, he had a very good thing of advising us always what to do, what not to do. I mean, I still remember our dinner table conversations, when he would be telling us, because that time used to be, I mean, English used to be a very language which you don't talk at home.
Correct.
Right? He would say, no, you have to speak in English. At least on the dining table, you have to talk in English, And we used to wonder why,
Okay.
But that became such a big communication medium. That was a major thing. And he would say, okay, fine, now think what you want to do. And he would never panic us. Like, okay, success, success, success. He would actually want you to, be in yourself. And then, go ahead with dreams high. You have to dream high. But be, humble. That is how he used to teach us. So I feel it's my dad, my mom. My mom was very supportive. She would always say, go ahead with whatever you want to do. Make sure you're safe. So like that.
That's true.
Yeah. So because I will go to sites,
I know.
all those places are very deserted. You'll be going up like some 20 floors up when there's no lift. So and there'll be labors and things like that. As a lady, you have to be a little careful.
Correct.
So she would be panicking and stuff. But yeah, they're very supportive. My husband as well. So that's what. So childhood had been like that. Only when we went to Delhi, things were a little different because your vision is like this, it just grows up. Because you're going to a metro, you're
Correct.
in a smaller place. And things change a lot because you mingle with a lot more people, you see opportunity. I never knew there was a design thing that you can follow. Engineering, medical is the main thing people talk, right? But when you say design, they ask 10 questions. What are you going to do? What are you going to do doing the design, meaning what? And I'm an accessory designer, so from NIFT. So accessories, products. What products? Because then when we had our wing also, nobody is sure what they're going to be doing finally. So that's what. But childhood, yeah, that is why I would see myself growing up.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And how was your college days?
College was fun. I used to finish talking about NIFT, right?
Yes.
So NIFT, we used to be bang on with our submissions, but I've even bunked classes from the window out. So I've had those fun times also. I've even had, my jury would be there in the evening and I've gone for a movie in the morning. So
That's amazing.
I feel college you should enjoy. At the same time, deliver.
Correct.
And I used to be topper. And so that is how they will always say, okay, fine, you have to tell her not to submit right now, because so the submission dates can move. So things like that. So yeah, it was fun. It was real fun. I still have a bunch of friends from college who are very close to me.
That's nice.
Yeah, and they do visit me as well.
Oh, very
Yeah, so that's what, yeah.
And I saw that, you won the gold medal and
Yeah.
you got that award from APJ Abdul Kalam.
Yeah.
So how was that experience for you?
Oh, well, actually, I was not aware that we are getting the award. It was a convocation we had gone for, and that was a final convocation of NIFT where my parents were also to be there. So we had gone to Delhi, and when we reached in Delhi, that is when my faculty said that you'll be getting an award. And I that time you don't have such fancy phones, checking up who is coming as a the chief guest and all. They said the president is here, and I'm like, what are you talking? So it was magical. I mean, my heart was pounding when I went up the stage. But when you receive the award, you don't even realize, okay, you have to click a picture with him, and So I do have 1 or 2 images with him, and it came in the newspaper as well.
Oh wow!
So it was really, and he is. You would look up to a person like it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was definitely a very proud moment for my parents as well, because they were wondering, what am I going to do with this design with me? But when they saw that, okay, fine, yeah, she's capable and she's got credited for something as big as that, they were also equally confident and happy with everything. Yeah.
Did you speak to him?
No, it was just like going up. He gave the award and he said congratulations and keep up the good work. And then we had a photo sessions with him for the newspaper, and that is how we walked out. He did give a talk, which I was actually, looking up, how much ever I can, absorb like a sponge. But yeah, it was really nice. It was really nice, yeah.
And Did you always know that you want to be an entrepreneur, or was it like an organic process that happened?
No, actually, no. I was in job for a very short time. I mean, actually, I would also credit my boss a lot because I was doing furniture. So he taught me a lot of details. Lot of details. So initial years of you have to struggle with work. I feel
Correct.
that is needed for you to be somewhere. So when I thought I'll be a consultant, but I knew I will not be doing a job because somehow at one point I realized it gets a little mundane, and the quality of work, if you have creativity, it doesn't suffice your creativity urges. You want to do something more, but the brief says something else, so it somehow doesn't fall. So I did consultancy for quite some time, but after that I said no, I have to maybe scale up. So I did actually during I did a course from Harvard. So in Harvard it was an entrepreneurship course which I did. It was an online course, but Harvard being Harvard, so they open up your mind that okay, fine, you can be somewhere else.
Correct.
So that is when I thought maybe I have to be an entrepreneur where I have to actually bring up jobs as well. And also the guys who are working with me have been working with me so long, so in a way I support them as well, right? It's not just doing following a passion, it's also building up a livelihood.
Correct.
So, and it's a part of the journey. So I felt maybe that's what and once you are there in it and you're doing it well, you're enjoying it, this is what you're made for. But it takes a while to know. But some people have early realization, some people have late. So that's what
I liked what you said, giving jobs. And in your field especially, there's so many people that you give jobs to, right?
Many, yes.
So that's
yes.
pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And is there any values that you bring from your childhood and implement it in your entrepreneurial journey?
Lots actually, lots. You will not know when you're growing up with couple of values, but when you are actually implementing and working, you realize something is deep inside which is telling you not to do this or to do something else, or do that. So as I said in the initial time, gut feeling. So a lot of that comes from the upbringing or the value, and also making the kids independent in the decisions. Like simple thing, like you should not be guiding your child every time. Like when I have 2 kids as well, I don't guide them every time what you eat, what you don't eat. I can tell them what is healthy, what is not healthy. But I can't tell them all the time that you do eat only this or wear only this. You have to give them that little bit of edge on decisions. So maybe perhaps when I took a decision of getting into design itself was a very big decision, because it's a professional decision you're taking. Correct. And based on that your entire career matters, right? And I used to be a good student in the later half of my life where in bio and all I was good. So my dad and my mom wanted me to be a doctor. And but then I ended up being an entrepreneur here. So I feel decision making is one thing you have to let the kids have their own. When you ask them, that is perhaps the only way you build up your value, because decisions is what ultimately it all is. You have a choice, as they say it, yes or no. So that is really something you have to build up as a childhood thing.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So now for any new designer who's coming into this field, what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages that they possess? Somebody new, just probably graduating this year.
So I would say advantages is there that you have a lot of people to learn from, so you should reach out. That is the biggest advantage. You have many people who are into that field now. Correct. Than what used to be earlier. Like I passed out in 2004. I didn't have a senior to ask, like we were in a small campus in Cunningham Road. We didn't have a senior to ask where do I land up.
Correct.
You just take the journey where it ends you up with. But now you have a lot of people. So I would say communicate, ask them, take advice. That is the best thing you have now, because of a lot of industry which has been old. And what is disadvantage is they feel sometimes they feel I know everything. Like you cannot be knowing everything.
Correct.
There are a lot of things that I'm learning now. As you keep progressing, as you keep doing things, you know that okay, this might not be the solution, this might not be the answer, something else is the answer. But you already come with preconceived notions because of this damn phone. Where everything you Google and it's right there. But what is there, as I said, that it is also what is not there.
Correct.
So you have to filter out. So disadvantage, I feel technology is an advantage, but if used over than needed is also disadvantage.
Double-edged sword.
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now some final thoughts.
Yes.
So to anybody joining design as an industry, so what are the 3 things that you would say that you need to grab on as an opportunity?
I feel any opportunity that comes is a blessing. Number 1. I mean, if you're getting an opportunity, that itself is a good thing that you are capable, so you're getting an opportunity. Never say no in the initial days. Only when you have got some experience where you know, okay, fine, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this, then you have a upper hand saying yes or no. Initially, never say no. That's what my thing, because you never know where that's going to land up.
Makes sense.
He always has a plan. Okay,
True.
so you have to go with that. So he would know better than what you are thinking sometimes. So letting go and following what is just coming is one thing. Secondly, giving your best. Always. If I am getting an opportunity, I have to give my best, 100%. I cannot be distracted with 10 other things along with me. You know, if I am talking to a client, I cannot be sitting on my phone and talking to the client. You have to be there 100%. So giving your 100% to your project is second. That is definitely there. And third is be a little cautious about the money. Money is ultimately what you're working for.
Correct.
So if you get carried away with your design thoughts and thinking, okay, fine, we'll do it off, whether it's paying. So do a little math before actually delivering the final thing. Do your math. That where you're landing, you have to make something out of it. Otherwise, there's no point doing the running around. You could have been sitting on a job altogether.
Correct.
So those are the 3 things I would say.
And what are the things that you would say to avoid?
To avoid something which is coming too fast. Maybe there is something trick to it which you might fall for. If somebody is pestering you too often, too frequently to sign on something, I would say hold on. Do your study before leaping.
Correct.
So with something which is very fast, might have a thing at the back which you might not foresee, which will come later on. So hasty decisions I would not suggest to avoid. Do your little homework before taking a decision. That's what will be my advice. Yeah, that would be one thing.
That's nice. Let's summarize the business lessons that we learned from Ipsita. So the first and foremost thing is to be very, very honest in the work that you do.
That's
and do your hard work, and like how you said, go an extra mile sometimes. It's okay, because it can pay off later on. Don't be too stingy with your clients, because end of the day your clients needs to be happy. If they are happy, then they become your marketers. And that's very true. Especially in service industry, word of mouth plays a big role. Like if I trust somebody, that's when I'm going to speak about them. Otherwise, why would I speak about them, right? So that's very important. And the second thing is stick to the values and your gut instinct, because that is very important, especially when you're taking on bigger projects and you're working with a lot of people. And the third thing which you said that I really liked is when things come too fast, take a pause, analyze things, and then you take a decision. Because sometimes we're so excited, oh my god, we got this project and we're so happy, and sometimes we overcoat or undercoat or don't really think about it. So it's important to study every project and understand your client's needs. So I think these were some really nice business lessons that we learned from Ipsita. We look forward to House Home to grow. But before we finish, I want to ask you, what is the idea behind this name? Because it's a very unique name.
So basically everybody gets a house. It's a bare shell. But a house becomes a home only when you do it up. So that is how it's house home. So
now I won't forget, because it's so nicely explained. Like,
Yeah.
you know, everybody gets a house and you
Yes.
make it up, and
Yeah,
that's
to a
when it
home,
becomes a home.
to live.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
house
yeah,
home.
Yeah.
That's very nice. So yeah, we look forward to having more
Same here.
interesting projects
Thank you.
for House Home and
Yeah.
become the global brand that you were talking
I hope
about.
so. Yeah.
So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you as well.
Ipsita.
Thank you as well. Thank you.